Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Sahaja Yoga Journey Within, day 54. My name is Kristine Kirby. I'm coming to you from the Boston area in the United States, and I'm here with my fellow presenters who I'm going to introduce to you shortly. Now, if you are completely new to our program, or if you have missed any classes, we have recordings of all the sessions that have gone before that will be made available to you, which are available to you, and we will be posting information about how to find those in the Zoom chat towards the end of the program. We also have one-on-one help available. After the main session, you will have the option to go into a breakout room and have a direct session with one of our practitioners who can fill in all your questions, answer your questions, give you all the information that you need. And our session on Sunday was about in honor of our mothers, honoring our own mothers for Mother's Day, but also putting our attention and honoring our mother Kundalini as well. Today, we're going to talk about some enlightened artists that we've been fortunate to have through the ages provide information, not information, but provide beautiful artwork and beautiful music, beautiful creations that are on an enlightened level and that actually help us to experience a spiritual dimension in ourselves, and also to just enjoy that spiritual dimension in the art. And we're going to go into more detail about that a little bit later in the program. We are going to have our usual foot soak and guided meditation today. And shortly after that, we will listen to a talk of Shri Mataji, Nirmala Devi, a short talk giving us her perspective on today's topic. And after that, we are going to have some live music combined with some verses, I should say, or some poetry that has been given to us or that has come to us from various realized souls, realized artists. And right now, what I'd like to do is actually introduce my fellow presenters. On my right is Victoria.
Hi.
Who will be leading our first meditation and our foot soak this evening. And we also have Poornima, who will be leading the second meditation. After the video, she will be providing some musical accompaniment and some poetry and prose and enlightened words to help to take us into meditation and experience that elevated feeling from that artistic perspective and creative perspective. After the musical interlude or after the musical presentation, we will have a session, sort of a question and answer session and with our presenters, with the three of us, where we will be sharing some of our own thoughts and some of our experiences on this topic of realized artists. So at this point, I would like to turn the evening over, our experience over to Victoria, who will lead us in our first meditation.
So, yeah, welcome once again to everyone. Probably you have your foot soak things ready. There was that little slide on with the description, so no need to recap that. I'll just say, as Kristine mentioned, our theme is realized artist or enlightened artist. And for those of you who might not be super familiar with the term, when we talk about realized, it means that the kundalini of that person has been awakened. It can be someone who's so-called born realized, which means they were born with that energy awakened. Someone like Mozart is a classic example because it's someone with universal appeal, who's the beauty of what he produced is something that can be felt on many levels by all kinds of people. It doesn't necessarily only relate to music. There's visual arts, there's literature. Poornima will be getting into that a bit later. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that that person was completely saintly in their behavior in everyday life, but this connection that awakening of the kundalini provided, so that the divine inspiration could come through them and emit in that way through what they were producing, whether it be music, literature, etc. And yeah, it'll be great to have that experience, kind of the real life experience shortly with Poornima. She'll be doing some music and quotes, and we'll just enjoy the vibrations coming from those. And if you don't feel on your hands yet the vibrations, that's absolutely fine too. There's so many ways we can feel and connect to these things. It can be a little shiver up our spine, or a sudden feeling of joy that just springs in our heart, and that's another manifestation of these vibrations. Eventually we will feel them on our hands, which is wonderful confirmation, but what we feel inside is also very valuable. On that note, let's get foot soaking. So before we start, let's raise our energy together, nice and slowly, so that our attention can also rise along with our hands. And it's nice, just a small thing, is if when we're getting towards our head, we can start to tip our head a bit towards the back, because that really opens up these upper centers very nicely. Because it's sometimes we're just so used to being hunched that we forget to unhunch when we're raising our kundalini. And we'll make 3 knots. And then the balance and protection. 7 times. And something we can try tonight is that we'll begin with our attention on Sahasrara. I mean, everyone's journey is different. I know for myself, I had the more, I shall clear out every chakra before I can be allowed or merit being in Sahasrara. And that's kind of a stuffy old thing that we don't need to be ruled by. So we're just going to, whatever we clear out or whatever we're doing, we'll just, let's say, surrender it to that 7th chakra, the Sahasrara. It's just going to get pulled out into the elements. It's not going to be something that's sitting on us anymore. With a light heart and a sincere desire, it's absolutely possible. So let's give our foot soak water a nice bandhan, again with our attention in Sahasrara, the last chakra. And we can close our eyes. And we'll just take a few minutes with our hands palms up on the lap, just to settle inside. Let's take our right hand and massage the crown of the head for a moment in a clockwise direction. Right, back, left, front. And we'll ask our Mother Kundalini within to please kindly bring us into a state of meditation beyond our thoughts, beyond our emotions or any stresses of the day, any expectations. Just that state of peace and silence. We can raise that hand some inches above the top of the head. Gently connect our attention with that point where our hand is, and then we'll bring our hand back down to the lap. Now, something we can do, if you need to open your eyes briefly, please do. So we're going to take those cool vibrations and we're going to bring them down into the two channels, just cooling down our right and left channels and then releasing anything into the foot soak. We can come up the central channel, cross at the agya and bring down the cool. One last time. We can put the right hand towards the floor for a minute or two as we invite the Kundalini to kindly evacuate any imbalance or heaviness on the left channel into the Mother Earth. Please may my desires and emotions become completely clear. We can now bring the right hand back to the lap, and we'll point the left hand towards the sky. Asking our Kundalini Mother, please evacuate all the excess heat, overactivity, overthinking, planning, anything pulling us away from the center, from the present moment. Please kindly evacuate that into the air and ether. We can bring the left hand back and slowly raise our right hand, inviting more and more strands of our Kundalini up to the Sahasrara and beyond, firmly connecting us to that all-pervading power. And finally, we can give a nice, what's called a bandhan, as you recall, around the 7 chakras which are located on our head. So we're just 7 times we can do that. And then we'll sit for a few moments with our attention just at the top of the head or above the top of the head. We can once again raise our Kundalini together. And the protection or bandhan. Now we can all rinse our feet and dry them, keep our bucket aside, and in a moment or two, we'll introduce the video. Wonderful. So we'll be watching a short excerpt of a talk from Shri Mataji, and I believe the theme is the essence of love. So as we did with our foot soak, let's experiment with keeping our attention here, kind of listening through this seventh chakra. We might not hear every single word, but the vibrations will be acting on us. The words have vibrations and they will definitely affect our subtle system. And just wanted to say one last thing. You might hear Shri Mataji say the word Param Chaitanya a few times in this talk. And she's referring to the all-pervading power of divine love, which we speak of when we're raising our Kundalini and connecting with that, or the Kundalini being a reflection of that. So you can perhaps listen out for that word, and then you'll know what it means during the talk. And we'll meet on the other side.
We always separate love from action. To us, love means some sort of a mad behavior towards a person. It has no technical know-how, how to love. It works without any understanding. When we love somebody, we don't know. What do? We think we love you. Tomorrow we start saying, I hate you. So how can it be love? We love our own children, love our own family, love our own friends, which is so unreal. If it was real, it would never have failed. That you cannot definitely say that, all right, today you'll work for your son and be very selfish about your son. But you can't say tomorrow how he will treat you or you will treat him. But Param Chaitanya knows. It knows how to express its love. Not only that, but it's an eternal feeling of love, which may change its hue, color, but the concern of that love will be the same. The essence of love is concern. Even if, supposing, somebody does wrong, the concern of the divine would be to correct that person. Concern. What we say as hita is the benevolence. So the concern for the benevolence will be all the time there, whether it may appear to be sometimes cruel, might appear to be affectionate, might appear to be overindulgent, whatever it may take a form, like a wave. Whichever way it may look, but actually it's for your benevolence. It works for your benevolence. Not only your benevolence, but the collective benevolence. And it knows very well what is to be done, how it is to be worked out. It does not have to go and learn from anywhere, because the complete knowledge of all this know-how also within itself. It's such a storage of wisdom, knowledge and love. So it does not deviate. Once you become a Sahaja Yogi, the concern for your benevolence is all the time there, whether you are punished or not is a different point. Some people might get a job. Some people will not get a job. With some people it will work out this way. With some people it will not work out that way. Then one may say that how is it this Param Chaitanya is behaving like this? It's all for your correction. It's a big churning. Whatever works out for your correction and is for your benevolence, if you understand this point, then you'll never be disappointed in your life. And it has no concern of its own benevolence because it is complete benevolence itself. It never thinks how it is going to be benevolent or helpful because it has no botheration about it. A man, say, who has everything, worldly things, still may be concerned about getting more. The greed there would be. But as it is the complete Poorna, it has no greed. It's fully satisfied with itself. And because it is so powerful, so knowledgeable, that it has no doubts. No doubts of any kind. And because there's nobody which can harm it, it has no fear. And you all have now felt that Parama Chaitanya should give you a complete, fearless life, a peaceful life, and a joyous life. Like a child who finds his mother, then he stops crying. No more. Now he's found his mother. In the same way you have found Parama Chaitanya and the connection within. So you don't have to worry for anything, don't have to think about anything, don't have to plan about anything. Only thing is you have to jump into it. Just jump into it. And know that you have become part and parcel of the reality.
Let's remain in silence, absorbing these beautiful words. As we grow in our meditation, sometimes we may feel that we are changing, and that can feel lonely if those around us are not having the same experience. And so one of the ways to nourish our self-realization is to connect with those who have it also. And I found a lot of comfort through the words and the poetry and the humor of realized poets and writers throughout the ages. So I'll share a few of them with you tonight. And as we continue our meditation through this music and these words, I invite you to see how these words can nourish you and encourage you as a realized soul. You are precious. And your state of meditation is precious to you and to the world. And so that deserves care and love. So if you like, you can keep your left hand open on your lap and bring your right hand towards the earth. This first piece of text that I'll share with you can be nurturing to the playful qualities of the first chakra. Men esteem truth remote, in the outskirts of the system, behind the farthest star. In eternity, there is indeed something true and sublime. But all these times and places and occasions are now and here. God himself culminates in the present moment and will never be more divine in the lapse of all the ages. Let us spend one day as deliberately as nature and not be thrown off the track by every nutshell and mosquito's wing that falls on the rails. Let us rise early and fast or breakfast gently and without perturbation. Let company come and company go. Let the bells ring and the children cry, determined to make a day of it. Why? Why should we knock under and go with the stream? Let us settle ourselves and work our feet downward till we come to rocks in place which we can call reality. Time is but the stream I go fishing in. I drink at it, but while I drink, I see the sandy bottom and determine how shallow it is. Its thin current slides away, but eternity remains. I would drink deeper. Fish in the sky, whose bottom is pebbly with stars. Now we can bring our attention up to the area around the third chakra, known as the void. You can leave your left hand open on your lap. And if you like, bring your right hand to this space around your belly and make a gentle bandhan, or just rest your hand there. This space is sometimes known as the Bhavasagara. It's the space that can either be calm or can be a stormy ocean sometimes. So as I share this next piece of text, see if it can be soothing to this inner ocean that you have. Hope is the thing with feathers. It perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity. It asked a crumb of me. Now you can gently raise your right hand to the Ajna chakra, which is the sixth one in the head. You can either bandhan in front of it, or even use your fingertips to gently massage, or simply rest your hand on your head. Before we reach the seventh chakra, there's this crossroads here where the qualities of our left and right channel culminate. And depending how we're doing, sometimes they get in our way. This next piece of text by beautiful realized soul empathizes with that sometimes narrow crossroads here and encourages us in our journey towards the peace that we reach in the seventh chakra. Your soul is oftentimes a battlefield upon which your reason and your judgment wage war against your passion and your appetite. Would that I could be the peacemaker in your soul, that I might turn the discord and the rivalry of your elements into oneness and melody. But how shall I? Unless you yourselves be also the peacemakers, nay, the lovers of all your elements. Your reason and your passion are the rudder and the sails of your seafaring soul. If either your sails or your rudder be broken, you can but toss and drift, or else be held at a standstill in mid-seas. For reason, ruling alone, is a force confining, and passion, unattended, is a flame that burns to its own destruction. Therefore, let your soul exalt your reason to the height of passion, that it may sing. And let it direct your passion with reason. That your passion may live through its own daily resurrection, and like the phoenix, rise above its own ashes We can rest both hands open in the lap. And allow our attention to rise up the center of our being, following the path of the Kundalini to the crown of our head. Part of our task as Sahaja Yogis, as realized souls, is to sustain this connection. And because we cannot go away to the Himalayas to meditate for a decade or two, we have to grow where we are planted, like a tree. This final piece of text is encouragement for us in that journey. What might it mean to grow where we are planted? To begin the sonnet before rhyme arrives, in the doorways of the day between dawn and supper. When breeze wilds up the stars of the lilacs and makes a light nest for the heron in flight. What would it mean? How would it be to grow like a pine, or become at last this majesty of maple, shoulders wide, arms always open to catch the rain? How would it be to fill summer with leaves, tender drawn, and still each autumn to let them fall? How would it be to be humble enough to root down deep and brave enough to grow that tall? Bird heaven light filter, willing forever to let the wind fill you with infinite songs.
Thank you. so much, Poornima. That was just delightful and so nourishing and inspiring on so many levels. I hope everyone enjoyed and also found that meaningful. So at this point, we will move on to the next segment of our evening. We're going to invite you, those of you who would like to split off into a breakout room. At this time, you will be able to do that. I'd also like to just mention a few of our program resources. We have a WhatsApp group that the information will be shared in our Zoom chat about how to join that WhatsApp group if you have not already joined. Through the WhatsApp group, you can also request a mentor. A mentor is someone who will work with you outside of the programs, outside of the Zoom sessions, and help you with your meditation and answer questions, perhaps meditate with you, and just sort of be a buddy on the journey and the process. So there's some information about how to request a mentor in the chat. We have live YouTube sessions, recorded sessions, and handouts are all available at the link that you see on the screen, us.sahajayoga.org/Jan 2023, because this session started in January of 2023 of this year. So please refer to the chat for that information. Our next session on Thursday, May 18th, is about becoming fearless. We may not think of ourselves as being fearful people, but most of us have a little something in there. It may be buried or it may be more accessible, but we all have something that kind of pushes those buttons. So this will discuss on this day 55 how we can resolve those fears. So now, let's see, interactive workshop in the breakout room. If just in the chat, just type breakout room, chat 2, breakout room help. And you will be assigned a breakout room at this time where you can ask personal questions or have a review of anything that you might have missed previously. And on our channel, where we are right now, I'm going to actually ask Poornima to come and join us. We're going to have a sharing session and just make sure that we are all able to be seen. So we'll just do a little rearranging here. We aren't all usually in the same place like this, but tonight we are. We're having a nice time together, presenting this program and putting it together. So Victoria on my right, who led such a beautiful session, the Footsoak session. Poornima on my left, who happens also to be my daughter, was our musician and our poet for this evening. And we're going to share based on some prompts that we have. So I'm going to just have a look at that and talk a little bit about our own direct experience on the topic of realized or inspired or enlightened artists. So I'll start with Victoria. We have a question here that who are your favorite realized artists and how do you experience their art? A favorite, we could translate that into have special meaning for you and have given you a special experience.
So I was, trying not to prep for these questions, just keeping it a little spontaneous, but then that sometimes leaves you with a bit of a blank. I would say two that just sprung to mind from quite different ends of the spectrum would be Michelangelo on the one hand and Stevie Wonder on the other hand. The art of Michelangelo is just something that I don't know. I haven't met anyone who hasn't had some resonance with it in a very beautiful way, whether you're religious, not religious, spiritual, not spiritual. It's just so powerful and so full of vibrations. So yeah, that one. And then Stevie Wonder, who is just, if you write down the word free somewhere, jot it down and look that up after the program or tomorrow, look up the lyrics and listen to him sing that song, and you'll know what I mean. And that would just be a nice segue to ask Poornima, who were the authors of
Yes,
what we heard tonight.
Thank you for asking that, because being swept away in a cloud of poetry, I forgot to mention. They are some of my favorites, and like, there's actually, I want to emphasize that there's not only a few. There's realized artists and enlightened and enlightening art all around you. So to narrow it down, I actually chose people who happen to have lived nearby to where we are right now, which is Concord, Massachusetts. So the first piece was by Henry David Thoreau, who is a well-known author and naturalist who lived just a couple miles from here at Walden Pond, and wrote a beautiful book about it. That was from that book. The second piece was by Emily Dickinson, who lived in Amherst, Massachusetts. And the third piece was by Khalil Gibran, who is a beautiful Lebanese poet who moved to the Boston area, which is about 20 miles from here, as a young person, and spent a lot of time here. And that was from his book, The Prophet, which he wrote in particular to support the spirituality of the people of America. So he wrote it in English to speak to the challenges that he sees to spirituality in this very fast-moving culture that we live in. So those are just a few of my favorite artists. I could give you a longer list, which I can do that later. But and the last poem was written by me today. So that might happen to you as well, is if you're reading other poets and the inspiration just strikes you, and before you know it, you're also creating, because you are all realized artists now, as are you. You know, that creativity really gets nurtured by our meditation. So
beautiful. So I guess it's my turn to answer that question.
Yes.
And I'm actually a flutist and musician myself, somewhat, not very, very high level, but I have played flute all my life. And the artists that have meant a lot to me are the Baroque music artists, such as J.S. Bach and Handel and Vivaldi. And of course, Mozart, also wonderful, beautiful. He was not a Baroque artist. So I love, I just think of him as like a buddy. When I put Mozart on in the morning, if I'm going to do some stretching or exercises, and we heard some nice Mozart on leading up to the program today. But I have a special affinity somehow for the Baroque music artists. I don't know what it is about that music that just always gives me goosebumps. And from what I understand, what has been explained based on some explanation that Shri Mataji has given over the years, she very, very much, she taught us so much about beautiful Indian music, but she very much respected the Western classical musicians and composers as well. And it told us that they actually have resonances. Some of the different artists, the different composers will have resonances with the pure qualities of the left side channel or the pure qualities of the right side channel. And apparently Bach has a resonance with the pure qualities of the right side. And Handel had a resonance with the pure qualities of the left side channel. So, and I think we've done 1 or 2 programs on this before. So that's something that you can experiment with yourself. For me, I mean, Bach and Handel both wrote some beautiful flute sonatas with accompaniment, which I was fortunate enough to study as I was learning my instrument, and just, again, always just gave me that shivery feeling, like really elevated feeling. So definitely experiment for yourselves, see what ends up being the most meaningful for you. And as Poornima was saying, yeah, try becoming an artist in whatever way. I mean, so many things can be creative. You know, a beautiful meal, you know, generate like for your family is tremendously creative. Raising a child is about the most creative thing you can possibly do. So it isn't limited to, you know, poetry and music and, you know, painting and sculpture at all. It's something that you can experience and express in many, many ways. So
That's a really good segue to the second question.
oh, thank you. So I'm glad you know what the second question is. Oh, okay, here we go. How have you become more creative as a realized soul is our second question. So in other words, after realization, after Kundalini awakening, how have you become more creative? In what way? You can if you can identify something, what would that be?
Yeah, something that just came to mind is that, you know, we talk about having the superego or conditionings aspect of our personality and the or ego aspect. And with the conditionings, I always see that as a limitation. It's whatever is kind of stuck, should have, could have, would have, and this is the way you do it. You know, and I married a Frenchman, and I remember the first meals with the family, like, no, you can't serve that in that cup, and you can't put this with this dish. And I was like, why? Of course, they see Americans as completely abandoned, crazy people who would put anything with anything. So, but on the aspect of kind of creativity, when you're not too sort of submerged in conditionings, then that flow of, you know, the inspiration can manifest in a lot of ways that it might not if we're too traditional. Or, I mean, tradition is not a bad thing as such, but if it keeps us kind of stuck in the past, then maybe, you know, rather than the present moment, as some of those excerpts were so beautifully saying. So I would say, yeah, just kind of seeing conditionings for what they are, and then just sort of letting them go or going beyond them with the help of this Kundalini, bringing us past that mental level.
How have I become more creative?
I can tell you that this has not been a big problem for me.
No, because, well, I will say that I feel really fortunate to have, I guess, been born a realized soul with my Kundalini awake as a little baby. And my task actually has been sustaining that in the whirlwind of the world. And I feel what I have felt for me and my peers is that creativity is actually our natural state, and that play is how we all start as children. I practice many art forms, but I would say the central one for me is acting, which is literally, I play make-believe for a living, which how wondrous and silly and mighty that is. It's a way to always be exploring, to always be in the dance of listening to your spirit and then expressing at the same time. And I think it keeps me honest in my spirituality to weave that with creativity, because like you were saying, it's easy to get rigid or to completely abandon, and, you know, it's easy to run in either direction. But when you are in that playfulness, which is really the quality of the first chakra, the innocence, that starting point, that's the starting point of all creativity, is an innocent, let's play, that feeling. And then you can go into something really deep and intense, or something really sparkly. But either way, it keeps you in tune with your self-mastery, because no one can come and tell you how it's to be done. The creativity has to flow through you. So each person is the instrument of that creativity. I don't know if I'm even answering the question anymore, but that's what I wanted to say. Also, because I feel so strongly that this audience is full of creative souls, and that that's just as much a part of you as your Kundalini. And the Kundalini is a way to unleash it even further.
Nice. Well, I don't know. That's a tough question for me. How have I become more creative? Because I don't necessarily see myself that way in the same way. My daughter and my husband are both very, very creative people and come from families of artists. And our family was not like that. We were musicians, or some of us, we were appreciators and more interpreters, but we're not. Don't see myself that way. But what I can say, one gift that I feel like I've gotten from Sahaja Yoga, from involvement in, you could say, the culture or the community of Sahaja Yoga, is exposure to a lot of different cultures, actually. Because this is a worldwide phenomenon, it's given me an opportunity. I mean, it's multicultural. Sahaj culture is multicultural. And one of the most beautiful gifts that I referred to earlier was learning about Indian music, in fact, because my whole exposure up until that time had been your typical Western, rock and roll music and classical music. I was fortunate. Indian music was completely new to me. And when you're exposed to something brand new like that, in the beginning, you're not quite sure what to make of it. And the ability to kind of gradually allow it to seep in as part of the process of meditation and begin to understand it on a very, not an intellectual level, but on a very innate sort of level, on a very heart level, and be moved by it, was a tremendous gift for me. And so now I feel like that's this whole other musical avenue that I explore just as much as I explore the classical music, not as an instrumentalist. I have not yet learned how to play Indian flute. I'm still hoping maybe one of these days I'll be able to, when I retire or whatever. But I love listening to it. And so that's been a wonderful gift for me. And there's many others that are along those lines. Brazilian music is something I've been exposed to recently because my daughter's husband is Brazilian. Lots of different influences, lots of different, an integration of sort of the creme de la creme of a lot of different cultures. You have access to that just through the community of Sahaja Yoga, and you can appreciate it through the meditation in a way that I don't think you could otherwise. So that's what comes to mind. So I think that's the end of our sharing session for the moment, unless anyone else has anything else that they would like to add at this point about the topic.
I would just love to encourage anyone who's watching to maybe put in the chat your answers to this question, because I'm really curious if you've become more creative since you started meditating.
Yeah, and also if you're ever out and about somewhere in a museum or listening to music or whatever, just kind of take a minute and tune in to the subtler side. What are the vibrations of what does it kind of make you thoughtless or give you a certain feeling, that spark of joy? So like experiment with it. It's this new awareness is it's fantastic, and it's something we can forget that we have as we get in our habit of thinking and just using our mental faculty most of the time. So yeah, enjoy this connection with the spirit that's been awakened, and sort of have that, just try to connect with things in that way and see what you discover.
Yeah.
And one of my early experiences, just within the first year of having received self-realization, which I was quite young, was to go into a bookstore. And it was filled with all different all different, it was what we refer to as a seeking bookstore. So it was mostly religion, spirituality, and a lot of different things like that. And as you can imagine, there's, kind of, there can be some conflict, from one philosophy to another. But I, at the time, was just sort of very flush with this new experience of vibrations. And I used my vibrations in that way by actually sort of putting my hands towards a couple different books. And there was one that was very, very clearly had cool vibrations coming from it. And that gave me some really helpful information that this book was going to be for my ascent. This was going to be something that would help to teach me, inspire me, and kind of help me with my spiritual journey. So I thought that was
That's great. And that just brings to mind again, because I was someone who took a really long time to feel any vibrations on my hands. So my heart always goes out to folks who might not be feeling those on their hands. Hopefully everyone is, but otherwise you might say, oh, well, if I can't put my hands out and check, how do I know if something is good vibrationally or not? You'll know, like, let's say you pick up a book, you might start reading it and suddenly your head pains. You'll get these indications in different ways. And because of this enlightened awareness, you'll be able to decode that and then.
And I'll add also, like, one of the experiences I had as a teenager was like having trouble finding books or stories that would nourish my spirituality. A lot of the stuff out there seemed so kind of like something that would drag you down. So I just want to, send my heart out to you. Like, if that starts to happen to you, if your tastes start to change a bit as you go deeper into meditation, and your desire is really just for something that's going to nourish you and not just distract your attention or kind of fritter it away, know that you're not alone in having that experience. Sometimes I'd be like, why can't I just be like the other kids, but holding to that hunger for the thing that's really going to nurture your spirit will reward you in the end, because you will find that one book in the bookstore or that piece of music that really, gives you shivers. And over time, you'll find you have a whole bookshelf of those, and then you can share that with others. So they're definitely out there, and you're going to write some of them, hopefully, in the days to come. But in all seriousness, it's okay if you have those feelings, and it's wonderful to follow and find what's benevolent to you.
Question from a
We
seeker.
do have a question from a seeker, so let's have a look. We love questions.
What can I
do to awaken my creative side? Who would like to answer that one?
I have so many ideas.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
One of the things I find most nourishing to my creativity is spending time in nature. And that's actually something that Shri Mataji has suggested, that artists really need time in nature. So we were just doing this earlier. You can, now that it's nice weather, in many parts of the world anyway, you can go and sit on the earth and notice what's beautiful. Notice the birds, the children playing, whatever it is, and bring with you the materials of your creativity. So if it's some paints, or if it's your flute, or if it's just a paper and pencil, and just see what gets inspired from that. That can be a starting place.
Yeah, no, I was just going to jump in and say, and if you feel like, well, I'm not a writer, I'm not, I can't do that, then just ask your Kundalini, please make me more creative. The Swadhisthana, as we talked, the second center has to do with creativity, and maybe just give some vibrations, nourish that center, and kind of wait. Sometimes we don't know how it will manifest. So it's great if you already have those kind of tendencies. Yeah, I'll bring my book, or I'll bring my sketch pad. But if you don't, there still is this creativity. It is inside you, like there's no doubt. And it will come out in the way that's for you or of you. So don't despair if you don't feel like you're naturally inclined to those things.
And I'll just add also, just what just made me think of that. Most artists, if you read about their lives, have mentioned the feeling of that being a vessel, being a conduit for something. So if you, and amazingly, when we're meditating and we're actually trying to get into, or trying to get into is maybe the wrong way to express it, but we are aspiring to that state of thoughtlessness. That is that state of, you become available to a creative force, which is kind of bigger than yourselves potentially. And all kinds of ideas and inspirations will come from that area. Even if and there's a beautiful story that Shri Mataji tells about Einstein, and maybe some of you already know this, and he was a violinist. I guess he played violin, but mainly we think of him as a scientist. But he talks about this moment of discovering the theory of relativity was when he was playing with bubbles like a child, laying on his lawn or something along those lines. So he just managed to kind of stop the process, the trying process, and just let yourself go empty, let yourself go silent if possible, and think of yourself as a vessel, as a channel for something. And that if you think of a flute, what could be more fulfilling to a flute than to be played? That's the fulfillment of its existence. And in a sense, we have that capacity to be instruments in that way as well. I'm going to just check and see if we have another question. I'm not sure if we do. Is there a musician that
Mozart,
affects the central channel? I think that in terms of classical musicians, Western classical musicians, that Mozart is the one that's supposed to be really combine the, integrate the elements and be in the central channel.
You had before said Mozart was on the left, but
No,
I think
No, it's center.
I said Handel was on the left.
Handel.
Yeah.
Handel,
Yeah, but I
Bach,
think-
Mozart.
Right. In terms of Western classical musicians, but
Yeah.
there's others, there's lots. I mean, it's not limited to that.
Yeah.
And I think the way to find out, and again, I encourage you to check out some Indian music. Indian music, I think it's amazing. It's been created. I mean, there's 7 notes in the scale, right? There's 7 chakras. In the Indian scales, there are also Saragama, let's see, I'm going to say it right.
Saragama,
So there's 7 tones.
You should watch some of the other
Clearly, I have
sessions
not studied Indian
for the
music
Indian
before.
classical.
I mean, in Western classical music, but there are also 7 notes of the scale. So there's a way to kind of play on that. And I think that Indian classical music has the deepest roots in how to sort of play on those resonances within you and really activate the Kundalini.
So the music was
check that out.
composed to actually
Much of it was,
nourish
yeah.
our spirit. Yeah, much of it,
Much
as you
of it
say.
was, yeah.
And yeah, with different times of day, different chakras have different rags that
Mhm.
particularly
Yeah.
affect them and
Right.
synchronize with them. So it's a whole fascinating world. But again, it will come naturally. Like if it's
Mhm.
not your thing now, just wait and
Yeah.
leave it for a while. I know
Yeah.
in the beginning when my family used to hear me listening, they'd be going like, "Nyeh," it all sounds like, "Nyeh," and I was completely enraptured and they were just thinking it sounded like a saw or something. But it's that subtle aspect that will definitely come, and when we get tuned to it, which you probably are or are going to be very soon.
Can
So
be, yeah,
yeah.
can be by that openness and sort of going to that deeper side.
Yeah.
So. Oh, let's see if there's another question. We will have a program.
Oh, wonderful.
That's right. We will have a program soon in which we'll sing the notes of the scale and see their effect on the
Oh,
7
wow.
chakras. So
Can't wait.
that will be fantastic. Yeah.
Great.
Well, I'll tune in for that one.
I will tune
Yeah.
in for that one too.
But yeah, I think as we're winding down, maybe explore in your meditations, like you said, asking for that creativity to be awakened, and then watch what happens in your day.
Mm.
And if you just tune yourself, speaking of notes and music, to your creativity and see what it suggests to you throughout the day. It might be really subtle. Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's like, oh, what do I say to my kid in this moment? Like it doesn't all have to be making a full piece of art, but it can become really integrated into your way of life. So we invite you to explore that and see what happens.
Wonderful.
So I think we're going to end our little sharing session for this evening. I think they're going to, for those of you that have not joined a breakout room, there will be some music remaining on this channel for a while if you would just like to sit in meditation and enjoy that for a little while. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you at the next, at our next session, I guess Thursday possibly, or whenever we can all get together again.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you so much for joining this
Have a good
evening.
night.
Have a great night.